Yeah, to get over. Well, they can put it on over the top. Yes, they will do, unless they put it on when they're plumbing in the pipework.
So why aren't they using something like a pocket?
Because this isn't a specialist sensor.
No, I'm talking on the pipe, look.
On the pipework.
Just more expensive.
We can give you pipe sensors, but they cost 26 quid.
Sorry, you mentioned anything over fibre.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, 26 quid. We have them. They're ridiculously expensive. We've got a box full of pipe sensors. And literally, years and years ago, we bought a box full of pipe sensors. I think we sold about 3, but the only people ever buy them in the NHS. No one else will spend that on a sensor, because all it is a sensor with a Jude lead clip on it. So yeah, just get a Jude lead clip, stick it on the top.
Would tape suffice?
So?
Why wouldn't tape suffice?
Because it's a control sensor, we can't have it coming off. So the tape itself, you'd say, well, it's bulletproof tape and it's not going to come undone. But the fact is that under MTS, they want to know that the sensor is secure, because bear in mind, if you want to know why we've got all these things we're going to talk about with these cylinders in terms of high limit stats and stuff, just YouTube. Yeah, YouTube, unvented cylinder exploding, and you see what it does, because basically, if an unvented cylinder does, if you overheat an unvented cylinder, then what happens is the water inside it goes over 100 degrees, but because it's held in a, if this was jammed up, for example, the pressure relief valve wasn't working, just say for example it's all furred up, it was just dead, then what happens is, it's highly unlikely to happen by the way, but if it did, what happens is it'll go a lot more than 100 degrees because it's under pressure, and then when it splits, water expands 1800 times. I think TNT is 2800 times, so it literally will knock a house down. It'll blow it up completely. So that's one thing we have to be aware of. So that's why we want to make sure we've got all sorts of measures to protect us in case the sensor does come out, but ideally you want to make sure that the sensor can't come off. If you've got a strong enough tape, then I don't see an issue with it. This is going in the loft anyway, it's not like someone's going to knock it. But anyway,
Just stick to a dual base, we know we're on the same page.
bear in mind that they're normally just pushed into a sensor pocket, and children can pull them out anyway. So that's what I mean. So you're probably okay with that, but it's just, you've got to make sure the tape's not going to cook and melt over 10 years or something like that, and the sensor just falls off. So what it does, it compares the temperature on the roof with the temperature on the cylinder, and when it's 10 degrees hotter on the roof, it will start the pump. It's adjustable, but don't bother adjusting it. So 10 degrees hotter, and it will carry on running that pump and then as it pulls heat out of the panel, when the panel's only 3 degrees hotter, it switches it off again. That's the hysteresis. And if it goes 10 to 12 to 14 to 16 degrees hotter, this thing will gradually ramp up the pump speed. It's only running the pump slowly because it's only one panel. It's only producing about 1.5 kilowatts, so it's not producing much. Whereas this could be put on a huge system. It could do 10 panels or something. So basically, this controller here is going to run the pump, and it's going to keep on running it until the coil in there has heated this cylinder up to 60 degrees. That's recorded down here on your sensor. And it's going to switch it off. You've got a sensor that you're going to put in on the top here, under the installation. That's sensor 3. That doesn't affect the controller at all, but it just means that on the controller you'll be able to see what temperature water is at the top of the cylinder. Now, the reason why that's useful is because the sensor 2 at the bottom is quite near to your incoming cold. As soon as someone's had a bath, what happens is it fills up from the bottom upwards with cold water. It might only be measuring 20 degrees down there, but it might actually be 60 degrees at the top of the cylinder. So when it's just a useful thing. It comes in the box. It takes 2 seconds to stick it in. So if you forget it, it doesn't matter. But try and put it in, and it's really simple to plug it in anyway. So that's all there is to this controller. It's got a maximum temperature shutdown of 130 degrees. So if a panel goes over 130 degrees, it won't restart until it's cooled down. That's just a safety feature, if necessary. If, for example, you went to commission a system and it was above 110 degrees, you would just go into manual mode, probably run it anyway, get a few bubbles and things coming through, but that's fine. But basically, that's all this is doing. So loads of other functions on it, which we're not going to bother with. We'll share the set that up in a minute. But and as far as this is concerned, this can be anywhere. Obviously, you're going to leave it upstairs most of the time, but the customer does insist on wanting it downstairs so they can see what it's doing. It's not a big deal. You just have to extend the cables. One thing you must be careful of, though, when you're doing it, is you must be careful. There's two cables coming out of here. If you put the smaller cable into relay one, into the 230 volt output from here into the power, you'll blow the pump up. Simple as that. So you've got the big cable and the small cable. The big cable is a power cable. The small cable is a signal cable. Because this is high efficiency pump. And the way the solar pumps work is you have a 230 volt supply, and then this is basically a 10 volt supply, which is just controlling the pump speed. And it's a variable speed pump. So that's it. Simple as that. Really basic. So you plumb the whole thing in. Your hot's coming out of the panel, the sensor end, the end of the panel of the sensor, which when you look at it from the outside, it's the left-hand side. That's the one going into the top of the top of the coil. So the primary flow. Now on this one, I'm not sure which one's a flow and which one's a return.
Well, that's the problem with
That's the
them.
return, I think, the wire.
Yes, that's how we've been.
Yeah, it
That's
should
how
be.
we've been doing it anyway.
It should be, but I don't know which side of it is the flow into the coil and which side's out.
We always go to the left-hand side of the
Okay, so this
cylinder is the
Yeah, so you've got to
it's the
check.
return.
You see,
It's the return to the actual
cylinder.
solar panel.
Okay, in that case, your sensor should really be on that, shouldn't it, on the return,
Yeah,
on the way
yeah,
back.
that's
The flow. So you double check the Kingspan and just make sure it is, because I don't know how they are inside. Sometimes they're at different levels. And there's solar ones that actually say solar
yeah,
flow,
it's
solar
on the
return.
bottom instead of side by side.
Yeah, but this one here, inside there, it is going to be, one of these pipes is going in and going up the cylinder.
Also, they also can check when they've got it all fired up.
Mm.
They can also check against S1, S2.
Yeah, you can absolutely.
S1 should be higher, S2 should be lower.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, I'm not sure how the coils are configured in
No,
the
but what we're
cylinder.
saying, that's how we double check as well, it's belts and braces.
Right, okay, cool. Okay, so then basically, so you've got you've put your sensor 2 on your sensor 2's on, you're going to go on the left-hand side here on the outlet from the cylinder. So you're going to click, Jubilee click that on, or if you've got the right tape, whatever, that can go on there. And then sensor 3, you're going to stick that under there, that can be tape or anything you do, it doesn't really matter with that at all. That's under the insulation. That gets wired back to the controller. And then the only other goes in the controller, goes into these. You've probably seen the terminals. They're really quick. It's just, they just do this in 2 seconds flat. It's really fast to put these in. And then you have power cable and signal cable from the pump. That's all that's going into here. Now, one thing you do need to bear in mind is because this is an unvented cylinder, and you've watched your YouTube video and you don't want it to explode. We have obviously you've got the usual safety, you've got pressure temperature relief valve, etc., etc. But we've also got the high limit stat here. Now this is the dual stat because the boiler stat. Some of these you'll probably just get high limit stats. I don't know, which is basically that bit there. And the high limit stat obviously is a mechanical reset stat under there. And all it is it's